someone who's playing college ball and is looking to go to the next level. But if like a high school senior, he's in his fourth year of high school, and there's no more high school after he graduates. So how do you evaluate a player, and how do you consider a player for scholarship when you haven't seen him play at all in his senior year? Hopefully he did well as a sophomore and a junior, and hopefully there's some tape that scouts from schools can look at to say, hey, let's give him a shot.
Right. Sure.
But in light of that, you may see more athletes going to HBCUs and smaller schools.
Sure. And
those larger schools aren't going to want to take a chance on that young man who did not play ball in his senior year.
Well, and we'll talk about that when we get back from the break, but it's good to see that some of the athletes are now looking at the HBCUs and other schools, because I think that will only make the competition that much better, among all of the various conferences. So I think that's an exciting thing. So when we get back from the break, I want to talk to you more about that. We want to talk about the NFL and the new helmets they have coming out that are supposed to help the players reduce the opportunities for exposure to COVID. And then, of course, we have the NBA that's getting ready to start their modified season in Florida. And then the Major League Baseball players are getting ready to get back and try to make a run for the World Series. So we have a lot to talk about. So keep it here, and we'll be right back with Ryan Adams and Ted Cummings. Keep it locked.
Straight No Chaser Talk Radio. Other shows water down the issues. We only serve the hard stuff.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
It's because of that historical trauma that goes back so many generations.
Believe in a fundamental form of racial justice.
We are tired. Guys, we're tired. And we are frustrated.
And racism.
This is a critical time for us.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Anyone else?
My name is David, and in 8 years, I'll be an alcoholic. I'll start drinking in middle school, just at parties. But my parents won't start talking to me about it till high school. And by then, I'll already be in some trouble.
Kids who drink before age 15 are 5 times more likely to have alcohol problems when they're adults.
The thing is, my parents won't even see it coming.
So start talking.
Who's next?
Before they start drinking.
I just remembered it's election day. Are you going to vote?
I don't know. I don't think I'll have time today.
Millions of eligible voters in America never make it to the polls or even register to vote. When you don't vote, you're letting other people make decisions for you and pick the things your taxes will pay for. Voting is more than a civic duty. It gives you a voice about the priorities and the future of your community and our nation. Voting gives you a seat at the table.
She's missing class, and she's dropping her pom-poms. Nobody knows where she is, not even her mom. Everybody thought she was the all-American girl. So there goes the books, it's all about the score. There goes the doggy, life is such a bore. There goes the family, she's got a new friend. There goes the looks, this is the end. I guess she really was the all-American girl.
Pick up heroin and you'll throw away everything you love. Share your stories on Instagram with #heroin.
Today in school I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school, I learned that I'm ugly and useless. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. In history, I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends. In English, I learned that I make people sick. And at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me.
In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. And in math, I learned that I'm trash.
The only thing I didn't learn in school today.
The only thing I didn't learn today.
The only thing I didn't learn
is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
Straight No Chaser Talk Radio. Other shows water down the issues. We only serve the hard stuff. Straight No Chaser Talk Radio.
All right, we are back with Ryan Adams and Ted Cummings, and we are having a very rousing discussion about the future of sports, particularly in this COVID environment. And we left off kind of talking about the high school athletes and what happens to those athletes that are trying to matriculate into college and are not going to have the opportunity to play their final year of eligibility in high school, possibly in some states, and just what does that look like. And we talked a little bit about the college athlete that may not have the opportunity to play their final season at Ohio State or Howard or Hampton or wherever they happen to be. So this COVID situation has impacted our nation in ways that I don't even think some of our leaders in D.C. anticipated. We see now that schools are struggling in terms of whether we're going to open, whether we're going to be in a virtual environment. And of course, as schools make those decisions, there are decisions about athletic programs such as the colleges are going to have to make. And of course, that leads us to the pros. Or right now, Ryan and Ted, the NBA is in Florida, of all places, the most COVID-infected place in the world right now. And the NBA greats, the LeBrons of the world, they're down there trying to get ready to play some type of a hybrid season. So, gentlemen, tell me what you think about that before we get going.
I said, man, and Ryan is the expert on this, man, but I said a couple of months ago that, you know, if they're able to do it, you know, spring football is not a bad idea, right? And if I were, you know, the athletic director at The Ohio State University, you know, I'd be looking at, you know, a spring season, and getting with other teams in the Big Ten to really talk about that and flesh that out. Because I think, you know, here in the middle of July, with football supposing to begin the last or next to the last week in August, I don't see how we get there and keep the kids safe. I don't see how we get there and do that. And
Ryan, let me ask you this, to pick up on Ted's point, why haven't the NFL and NCAA and others looked at spring football as opposed to doing it right now, particularly in light of the circumstances?
Well, I know that moving college football from the fall to the spring may disrupt the NFL's calendar because, you know, the combine is usually I believe it's in the May time frame. No, I'm sorry. It's usually in the March time frame. And then the draft usually late April, early May. So they're going to have to restructure how they do business. And it's just really, it's tough thinking about moving that schedule to the spring because you've got other spring sports. You've got college basketball, of course, the NCAA tournament, and of course, baseball spring training. So, again, I think it's a competition for eyeballs, a competition for revenue. And, you know, for years, college football, you know, they own the fall. They own the season of the year. And to think about moving that into the spring and to having to compete for the eyeballs that are watching the NBA season, the Major League Baseball season, and all of the activities leading up to the draft. They want a part of the calendar that's theirs and theirs alone. And then it all goes back to the dollars.
Now, in your professional opinion, do you see a scenario where the NFL season is scrapped for this year?
Heck yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at how and it's already starting. The owners and players and the league are already going back and forth about how they're going to move forward. You saw what happened with Major League Baseball. I think those negotiations must have gone on for at least 3 weeks. The players would put an offer on the table, and then the owners would counteroffer, and they were going back and forth. Well, we'll give you 75% of your salary. The NFL has already talked about taking 35% of the player's salary and putting it in an escrow account. Well, who's going to collect the interest on that escrow account? Does that belong to the owners? Does that belong to the league? So already we're starting to see some back and forth. And if they don't resolve it quickly, I mean, training camp is supposed to begin in late July. I believe in the July 21st through July 27th timeframe. We saw how Major League Baseball went back and forth, and they finally come to an agreement. How long is it going to take for the NFL to do likewise? So I think that the NFL season, the chances are probably, at this point, slim to none.
Sure.
And Slim has got his bags packed, and he's leaving town.
He is, man. And if I could piggyback, I want to piggyback biologically on everything that Brother Ryan just said.
Sure.
COVID is a lingering disease, right? It ain't no you get it once and you're good, right? Mm-hmm. No, you get it and you may have some severe lingering effects, right?
Right.
So if you get 30 elite, for example, NFL players who get COVID, and 20 of them have diminished lung capacity, which may never come back, right? Then they can't really be football players anymore.
True.
Right. And so you're looking at, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars of contract money tied up in the fact that these 20 guys really can't do this job anymore. And so, you get 20, 30, 40, 50 of those out of a league of 53 times, whatever the number of teams is, right? How do you have football? I'm asking the question. How do you do that?
I was listening to Daytime Sports Talk Radio, and our brother Stan Verrett was on ESPN Radio. Mm-hmm. And he went down a list of all of the high-risk groups for COVID-19. At the top of the list, African Americans and Pacific Islanders.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Hispanics.
Individuals with a body mass index of 28% or higher. Well, that takes care of all your offensive and defensive linemen. Who's left?
Right. Wow.
So you make a very good point, Ted. It's the lingering effects of COVID that someone's going to have to wrestle with. And these players, I know Richard Sherman's been very outspoken. The thought of putting their lives in the crosshairs for these owners, and there's already some butthurt anyway between the players and the owners. I mean, that's just going to add fuel to the fire. If I called Richard Sherman today and I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 meaning no way in hell and 10 meaning we're gonna play, he's probably at about a 1 or a 2 right now.
Well, brother, he's right to be at a 1 or a 2. And oh, by the way, that new I've seen the new helmet, right? Mm-hmm. That potentially takes care of what happens on the field, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But players ain't freaking standing on the sideline, most of them with the helmet on. They don't have the helmet on when they're in the weight room and they're working out. But they're not, they don't have a helmet on when they're living their lives and and from an isolation perspective, the colleges have talked about, well, we'll put all the kids, all the players in a hotel or a specified dorm, and we'll do that for 6 months. And that's not going to work, right? No. People are going to live. My nephew at The Ohio State University has a girlfriend and a dog, right? Mm-hmm. And he's a normal 21-year-old red-blooded American man. And so he's living life and things happen. You can't, so if you add a high intensity encounter like football, which is, the second most contact sport after wrestling, right? it dramatically increases exposure potential to these kids, man, and these men.